In this video, we're going to look at using the distributive property. All right, this tends to be a thing that like everyone can do, but when it gets put into a larger problem, a lot of students forget to actually do the distributive property. So in this one, we're just going to practice doing the distributive property itself, but throughout the rest of the semester and the year, all right, when I say distribute, that means we're using the distributive property talked about in this video. All right, so we have to distribute when we start mixing multiplication and addition. Mainly it'll be things like this, where we can't simplify what's in the parentheses because they're not like terms, but we still want to multiply it by x. All right, so we do this to kind of do this multiplication. We can't actually do the addition first. All right, so what does the distributive property say? All right, if you were to like evenly distribute something to a class, you would kind of give everyone the same amount. Same thing, distributive property, you're going to give everything in the parentheses, whatever's on the outside, and it's just multiplication. So I'm going to do 3 times x minus 3 times 2. All right, that's 3x minus 6. All right, so the important thing, I always will tend to draw these little arrows in, just multiply everything in the parentheses by that number. All right, here we have negative 2 that's being distributed in. All right, so we just have to be careful with our negatives. We're going to have negative 2 times 4 minus x times negative 2. Negative 2 times 4 is going to be negative 8 because there's only one negative. Here we have this negative, or subtracting, and that negative, those are going to cancel out and give me a plus 2x. All right, and you could write a middle step here. That's negative 8 minus negative 2x. And then see that these negatives are going to cancel to give us that simplified final answer of negative 8 plus 2x. All right, but with their distributive property, most common mistakes are forgetting to distribute to both terms. And then the other common mistakes is just when you distribute a negative into a negative, they're going to cancel to make a positive. All right, so here's one for you to try on your own. Negative 2 times x minus 6. And here's the final answer. So I wrote out all the steps. So the first thing is you're multiplying this negative 2 by both of those. So negative 2 times x minus negative 2 times 6. Negative 2 times x is negative 2. Negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. And again, when it's written out like this, you can see these two negatives are going to cancel to give me that positive in my final answer. All right, in general, you can just go straight from here to the final answer once you get comfortable with the multiplication and the negatives canceling out. All right, so when we're doing the distributive property, we multiply everything inside the parentheses by whatever is on the outside. Doesn't necessarily be a number. It could be a variable too. But we do that first. We kind of distribute in to everything first, and then we use any other rules that we've learned, like exponent rules, after that. All right, so for this example, we have this term 2x that's being multiplied here, so we have to distribute it in to every single term. So in this case, it's actually 3 separate pieces. Again, the distributive property says I'm going to take 2x multiplied by x. I'm going to add 2x multiplied by 3x squared. I'm going to subtract 2x times x cubed. And again, you don't necessarily have to write this step when you get good at multiplying all these things together. All right, but in our previous learning objective, we learned 2x times x is going to be 2x squared because we can add those powers of 1. All right, so 2x is x to the first. The next one we're going to add 2 times 3 is 6. X to the first times x squared is x cubed. Then we're going to subtract 2x to the fourth, because x to the first times x cubed is x to the fourth. All right, so this is our fully simplified final answer. No more like terms to combine and no more multiplication to do. All right, that's our answer. All right, one more example. All right, negative 3x, all right, squared is this whole term is being distributed in. Again, I'll write it out. You don't have to do this every single time once you get used to doing the distributive property, but I'll write it out. The first one, the negative 3 times the 4 is going to give me negative 12. X squared and x to the first is going to give me x cubed. And then minus negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. X squared times x cubed is x to the fifth. And the only thing I have to do is I'm subtracting a negative, so those cancel out to give me a plus. All right, so that's our final answer after using the distributive property. All right, and here's one for you to try on your own. And here's the final answer. So negative 2 times 6, that's going to give us that negative 12. Negative 2 times that negative or minus 3 is going to end up giving us a positive 6. And then our exponents, x to the first, x squared is x cubed. X to the fourth is x to the fifth. All right, so it's putting everything together, distributing to both those pieces to get our final answer. All right, so now go ahead and practice distributive property. Again, for the skill check, you're pretty much just doing the distributive property, but the thing to remember in general is as we go through the year, there's going to be problems where the distributive property is just a part of the problem. So whenever you see some number in front of parentheses, all right, maybe it looks like this or something. All right, just remember to distribute, and a lot of times I will draw all the little arrows. All right, to remember to distribute this to every single term in that parentheses. All right, so doing the distributive property by itself, most people are fine with, but when it becomes part of a bigger problem, some people skip the step and will just do the first arrow and not all the other ones. So just remember to distribute, especially when there's a negative sign. All right, be careful with your negatives.